Sports lovers, welcome back to another episode of Global Sports from Caribbean Perspective, the show where we break down the best teams, the best games, and provide you with the best takes, all from a Caribbean perspective, all while turning our passion into purpose. Game week 7 of the Vinci Soccer Premier League had a slightly different feel this weekend. For the first time this season, none of the matches were streamed live, unlike the previous 6 match weeks. So, because of that, we weren't able to follow every match in real time and only managed to attend the final 2 games of the weekend last night. Despite that, the results certainly didn't disappoint. We saw another heated stalemate, Camdonia continuing their resurgence, Layou producing the biggest win of the season so far, and the defending champions finally showing up. Let's take a look back at all of the action from game week 7. And I'm your host today, Shaba, and I'm here virtually with. And we kick off match day 7 review from Friday where Jebelle took on Awesome FC and it played out to a stalemate. The match produced 9 yellow cards and 2 red cards, both shown to Jebelle players Dimitri Thomas and Najima Borgin. Despite the disciplinary drama, neither team could find the breakthrough as both sides settled for a goalless draw. Now, coming into this game, we obviously acknowledge the fact that Awesome has been great defensively this season, whereas Jebelle has been very much structured. And I think this was shown in that result.
Yeah, fair result. I think this is one of the games I predicted to go, I think 1-0 or something like that. So nil far off, and crazy to hear that they had so many cards in the game. I'm pretty sure the coaches wouldn't be happy with either side. Ill discipline.
Yeah, it's not good luck. It's not good luck, especially for national players such as Borgin. So, like we said, we weren't able to get a look at the game to see how it played out exactly. But based on the match report that was received, we could see that it was a very ill-tempered affair that played out to a draw. So let's move on to the second game from Friday night, which saw Camdonia Chelsea defeat Bequia 5 goals to 1. Camdonia continued their resurgence with an emphatic victory over Bequia on Friday night. The South Leeward side came flying out of the blocks, scoring 3 goals in the opening 15 minutes through Reggie Barber, Jamo Williams, and Nigel Charles. Bequia managed to pull one back to Jovel Morgan, but Camdonia restored their advantage just before halftime when Jodamo Slater scored their fourth in first half stoppage time. Imani Miller added the fifth in the 54th minute to cap off an impressive performance and secure back-to-back wins for the once struggling Camdonia Chelsea. So another impressive one has to say another impressive victory by Camdonia as they seem to have gotten their season back on track.
Yeah, really impressive. One that I was not expecting at all, and they really hammered Bequia team who basically did the same thing last week where they conceded 3 or so goals very early in the game. Did the same in this one, so they didn't seem to learn anything. They didn't seem like they see if they could things a bit to come back a bit there. But it was great to see Camdonia Chelsea with a victory such like this. We've been banging on them all season, especially with the open play goals, and they have scored about 5 goals from 5 different goal scorers. So credit to them and credit to the coach.
Yeah, much credit to the coach. Much credit to Coach Wilson, who was, heavily criticized earlier in the season after he was sent off in the first game after he had some issues with the refereeing decision that took place in the game against Hope, if I can remember properly. So all the credit in the world has to go to him and his staff for turning things around. As you mentioned, 5 different goal scorers, showing the team is not lacking in depth, not lacking in scoring clearly. And yeah, onwards and upwards. As for Bequia, another game where they are just continuing to leak goals. It doesn't seem as though there is you know, any stoppage in sight where their goals conceded are concerned. They concede at least 2 per game, and with that form, it's not hard to see why they're down in the relegation zone alongside Avenues United. So impressive victory from Camdonia again, and while Becker will still need to pick things up if they are to survive. Moving on to Sunday's game, where Hope International take on BESCO Pastures, and this was the second nil-nil draw of the weekend. Another frustrating outing for Hope International as they were held to a goalless draw by BESCO Pastures. Hope will likely view the result as another missed opportunity to collect 3 points, while BESCO may also feel that they dropped 2 points despite another disciplined defensive performance and clean sheet. So, who do you think would be happier with this draw?
It's hard. That's a tough question, to be very honest. But being where BESCO are, I would like to say continuing, on the tough streak, another point gain, to stay close to the pack. They're right up there, just in, I think, in fourth position. Yeah, right with the chasing pack. So, another point gain for Hope. They would need to win as many games going forward from now, because they are just lingering right above the relegation zone, and I don't think like a point, just a solitary point, really saves face for them right now. They need to improve in their performances and be a little bit more clinical. They really haven't gotten it together, and they've been so underwhelming so far for the season. So they really have to get it together before it's
Yeah, I have to agree that the point doesn't necessarily suit either team particularly well, because this was a missed opportunity, definitely for BESCO, because if they had won, considering the other results that we'll get to, they would have been as high as second in the table,
a
if my math
second.
is. They would have been as high as second in the table. So this just continues a streak of underwhelming performances for them. They began the season by winning and drawing their first two games, taking 4 points out of six. But then they've struggled since, and it's been really, really impressively disappointing actually to see how poor that Hope has been, considering and we keep have to mention in the quality in their squad. I'm not certain what it's gonna take for them to turn things around, but they're definitely struggling at the moment. As for BESCO, again, another clean sheet, another solid performance at the back, but maybe they were a bit lackluster going forward in the 3:30 weather yesterday that we saw was very on and off with the weather. So maybe that played a part. Who knows? But I guess they take a point and move on. Moving on to the second game from Sunday, which saw Avenues United take on Layou FC. Layou responded to last week's defeat to System 3 in emphatic fashion with a goal-scoring demolition of Avenues United. The match ended 8-0, which was the biggest scoreline of the season thus far. Koby Mingo led the charge with a hat-trick, while former Avenues United striker Garrett Ledgerwood also scored a hat-trick against his former club. Ali Hanaway added a brace to complete the rout. The result sees Layou cut the gap at the top of the table to just 2 points, heading into the weekend's final fixture as between System 3 and the defending champions. So, as we could have predicted, a very easy result for Layou against the hapless Avenues, filling their boots. The impressive Mignot getting himself 3 goals and assists for one of Ledgerwood's goals as well. Ledgerwood scoring his hat trick in the second half. This was one of the games that I was able to attend, and I have to say that I was very impressed by the way Layou kept their foot on the gas, because one might think after going up 3, 4, 5, it would be easy to just relax and let the game wilter out. But they kept pressing, they kept hammering, they kept trying to get goals. And despite the score being 8, it could have been double figures based on the chances that they would have created. They kept Avenues up in their own half, and the Avenues barely saw Layou's keeper on the other end. So they even made some rotations because Ledgerwood did not even start. The likes of Kenija Joseph still hasn't returned. Velox didn't play either. So it was somewhat of a rotated Layou FC team as well. What's your thoughts on the scoreline when you saw it?
8-0 is not what I was expecting, especially from what we've seen recently, from not necessarily Leo, but from Avenue, showing that they could score too. They've scored on System 3. They could find the net. So while I was expecting a victory for Leo, I was expecting at least a one goal for Avenues. To at least some look respectable, but have to say credit to Leyu for a comprehensive victory. Credit to the guys for not, taking it lightly and getting complacent. Ledgerwood and Mignot and the rest of the folks, and yeah, for just keeping a clean sheet. Last week I think I said when the System 3 had a double digit goal difference. and he was right up there with them with just 4 goals back and 2 points behind. So yeah, it's a really, really good victory. I think just what they needed, especially with the last two the last system 3 suffered after to Predators. So yeah, good going for Layou.
Yeah, great going. And just before we move on to that Predators System 3 game, just wanna touch on Avenues one more time because it was a very hapless performance, I have to say. Like watching it, being a spectator and taking in that, I could just imagine being on the field as one of those Avenues players, and it looked looked like one of those games where Barcelona plays a weaker team in La Liga and they're just hemmed in and hardly able to get out, could only, complete 2 or 3 passes and not able to escape their own half and go down and challenge the opposition's keeper. So they they certainly look destined for the drop, if we're being honest. Um, they're not putting up much of a resistance, because that was a very embarrassing showing, I have to say. Very, very embarrassing. And the way that Layou created their chances and took them is to be credited. But the lack of resistance with which they were met is what I would say facilitated them scoring so many goals. But all the credit to them, all the credit to the clinical Koby Mignot. I have to say he's been the standout player in the Premier League aside from Salomon this season. One would have to say no with his goals and his performances. So credit to Mignot, credit to Ledger Wood, credit to Layou FC, who are now second in the table. Okay, and moving on to the final fixture from game week 7, which saw the defending champions North Leeward Predators take on the league leaders System 3 FC in a match that was highly anticipated. So the defending champions North Leeward Predators finally made their statement this season by handing System 3 their first defeat of the campaign. Predators took the lead in the 17th minute when a deflected cross forced System 3 goalkeeper Dennis Grant into an unfortunate own goal. System 3 equalized in the 56th minute through Zibian Cunningham after capitalizing on some loose defending by the defending champs. The match appeared destined for a draw until the 93rd minute when a corner swung into the back post from Ezra Glasgow unmarked, and he tapped home the winner to secure a dramatic victory for the defending champions. So, Predators being the first team to defeat System 3 this season, it was a very spirited performance, I'd have to say. System 3 had the better of the game, better of the chances, better of the open play. They combined very well. Their wing tandem of Collis and the other guy who came out, Sherman Phillips, they pose a lot of danger to North Leeward's defense. And Solomon had one of his quieter games, I'd have to say, the first time he's blanked so far this season. But System 3 played very well. Carlos Solomon, aka Zidane, also had a very good game. I'd say Sutherland back in the defense as well played well. But all the credit in the world must go to the defending champions who fought tooth and nail and put up the best fight that we've seen thus far against System 3 this season, and rightfully taken away all 3 points. So just tell me your reaction when you heard that System 3 lost their first game of the season.
Honestly, thought that this score line would have been flipped the other way. Thought it would have been System 3 with the 2-1 victory, but huge credit to North Leeward Predators. So, as you said earlier, making a massive statement. I'm sure many really counted them out, and it was also good to see that the names on the score sheet didn't involve DL, because normally when there's some sort of success, well, for this season especially, it has always involved DL in one way or shape or form. So it was really refreshing to see someone else really, take the game up on their shoulders and try to win the 3 points on our Leeward Predators. So all credit to them. I really didn't expect this result, and I like how the table is shaping up, is really looking exciting, and hopefully the next round of fixtures in terms of the round closer.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the table is shaping up very nicely. And just to preface our statements, we have no horse in the race, and our job here is just to break down the games as we see it. So we have no favorite team or no favorite player, anything here at GSCP. So what I'd have to say most definitely is that result is what a neutral fan would have appreciated most so far this season, because all credit to System 3 and the start they've made to the season thus far. They have been the best team and are deservedly top. But in the context of fairness, or not necessarily fairness, but a competition, we wanted to see a competitive league, and this defeat definitely allowed that. So all credit in the world has to go to the North Leeward Predators, who, as I mentioned, they fought tooth and nail and for every single ball in that game yesterday. Like I mentioned, System 3 played very well. It was one of their better games, I'd have to say, as well, in terms of combination play, little flicks in and around the box. They created a lot of chances, and on another day, they would have won by a 4-2 margin instead of, only being able to score one. Another day, Zeno would have scored two. So credit to System 3 for being the pace setters thus far, but more credit to the Predators for finding a way to defeat them. And as you mentioned, DL didn't have a part to play on the scoreboard, but in the game, in the regular play, he was very, very influential in cutting out play, in helping build attacks as well. So all credit to Coach Williams and his staff for defeating System 3 for the first time this season. And that wraps up the fixtures from game week 7. So just to recap the table, after 7 rounds, the title race is heating up. System 3 remain at top of the table on 16 points, but their first loss means the chasing pack are closing in. Layou move into second place with 14 points after their 8-goal performance, while the Predators jump to third on 13 points, level with BESCO Pastures, but ahead on goal difference. Jebelle sit fifth on 11 points, while Awesome FC continues to draw matches and sit in 6th position. Further down the table, Camdonia's recent victories lift them to 7th, while Hope International remain just above the bottom two. The bottom two being Bequia United and Avenues United, who continue to struggle and occupy the relegation positions with just 3 points each. In the race for the Golden Boot, obviously Alzino Solomon still leads the way on 14 goals, but Koby Mignot, who scored a hat-trick, has now taken sole ownership of second place with 8 goals following his hat-trick over the weekend against Avenues. Garrett Ledgerwood, also with a hat-trick on the weekend, has now jumped to third and is on 6 goals, while DL Spring has 5. Java Odein with 4, while there are a boatload of players who are tied on 3 goals. So moving on to the Matchweek awards from Game Week 7. And the player of the week this week has to go to Layou FC's Koby Mignot, who scored 3 goals and assisted another in Layou's dominant 8-0 victory over Avenues United. Team of the week would have to be the defending champions, North Leeward Predators, as they produced a huge performance to hand league leader System 3 their first defeat of the season with a dramatic late winner. So team of the week, North Leeward Predators. Player of the week, the impressive Koby Mignot of Layou FC. So looking ahead to match week 8, and we'll run our predictions and thoughts as usual. So we'll start with Friday's games that we'll see the the aforementioned North Leeward Predators, who will take on last place Avenues United. Right, Predators will be full of confidence after their first league win of the season, after their win over league leader System 3, while Avenues will be desperate to respond after conceding 8 goals. So, can Avenues recover after their heavy defeat, or will the champions continue their momentum?
Easy question. The champions will continue their momentum. You believe it will be a complete thrashing, similar to the Avenue suffered in the previous game. Yeah, I think it should be an easy practice match for the North Leeward.
Scoreline?
It's 3-0.
3-0.
3-0.
Okay, I'm gonna have to agree with the result for sure. Maybe the scoreline might be a bit different, but I could see an easy victory for the Predators here against a hapless Avenues United team, as we've continued to lament. I'd go for 4-0 to the defending champions. In Friday's second fixture, which will see Bequia take on Jebelle, Bequia will want to bounce back after conceding 5 goals to Camdonia, while Jebelle continue to search for consistency. So question, can Bequia tighten up defensively, or will Jebelle finally convert their performances into another win?
Yeah, I am going to go out the evidence that Jebelle can win the game off of the structure we know they have and the quality players that we have. And we see Bequia in the previous 3 or so games, they've been more leaky than a burst pipe. So we I believe it should be, I wouldn't say easy, because I believe Becky would want to come out and fight and not, drag the ball like a dog. But yeah, I think it should be at least a 1-0 victory for Jebel.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree as well with this one. I could only see a Jebelle victory here. Bequia has been, too leaky at the back in comparison to Jebelle, who have been, very much solid throughout the season, despite them sometimes lacking in firepower up front. I could see them having too much for Bequia here, and I could see a comfortable 2-0 victory for the Green Machine. Moving on to Sunday's fixtures, which was the first fixture, we'll see BESCO Pastures take on Awesome. Two teams known for defensive discipline meet in what could be a very tactical matchup. Will this be another low-scoring affair, or can either side find the attacking spark needed for 3 points?
So Besco versus Awesome 0-0 popped into my mind immediately. Maybe prize us this weekend, but as a high scoring affair. I think recently, especially where Awesome is concerned, they have, you know, not been much of a threat up front, and I think that is something that they should. Well, I mean, of course, they're working on it now, but there needs to be tweaked.
I could see this being a very tactical affair, as mentioned. Awesome has been known for keeping clean sheets throughout the season and being known hard to break down. Same can be said as well for Besco Pastures. So this has 0-0 written all over it. However, I can see Besco eking out a close victory here, 1-0. However, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the game is a 0-0 draw. Moving on to Sunday's second fixture, which will see two Leeward teams clash. Layou versus Camdonia. One of the standout fixtures of the weekend, with Layou coming off an 8-goal performance and Camdonia building momentum following 2 consecutive wins. Can Camdonia continue their resurgence, or will Layou's attack prove too powerful? So this is going to be a very, very interesting game. As we mentioned, Camdonia has found form after starting the season very poorly, and Layou, of course, are known for their firepower, as we've seen in their last game against Avenue. So it's going to be a very tough one for Layou, and they should not underestimate Camdonia, who will be coming into the game with a lot, you know, nothing to prove, basically. Nothing. They are the underdog coming into this game, and I could see that working in their favor. However, I could still see Layou coming out victorious just due to their overall firepower in attack with Mignot and Ledger Wood. So I'm gonna go with a 3-1 victory for Layou. It will not be easy, of course, and I could see Camdonia definitely putting up a fight. So moving on to Sunday's final fixture, which will see league leader System 3 take on Hope International. So after suffering their first defeat of the season, System 3 will be eager to respond immediately. So will System 3 bounce back strongly, or can Hope pull off a surprise result? Based on the evidence that we've seen from these two teams thus far this season, there's only one result here. However, these two teams have a long-standing history / rivalry in the Premier League, and who knows what that could count for in this fixture. Many of these players may not, be aware of the history of the two clubs, as most of the players are, young and wouldn't have been there when both teams were in their heyday. But historically, we know System 3 versus Hope is a big fixture in the Premier League, and I'll take some sort of historical precedent going into this game and say it won't be a walk in the park for System 3. Eventually, Hope will have to improve. Their quality will eventually have to shine through. But all in all, I could still see System 3 coming out with a victory here, especially considering they're coming off their first loss of the season. They will have some fire in their belly and will look to take it out on Hope. So I can see System 3 coming out with a 3-2 victory on Sunday, as System 3 isn't really known for being watertight at the back thus far this season. So I can see them letting in a couple, but putting just more than Hope would put past them. So 3-2 for System 3 over Hope on Sunday. And that wraps up the predictions for match week 8 of the Vinci Soccer Premier League. And before we go, as usual, we have our little segment before we end off where any little observations or any little issues or anything of note worth mentioning. This is where we usually input it before the episode ends. And this week we have to address the elephant in the room, right? So for all of the game weeks thus far this season, the games have been streamed live, whether that be on YouTube or on VSPL's Facebook page, right? And for the first time this week, no games were streamed live. So the Vinci Soccer Premier League put out a statement, and I'll read it here. The SVGFF would like to inform the general public that the VSPL game scheduled for Sunday, 15th of March, and this was the same for the games on Friday as well, at Independence Park will not be live streamed on VC3. The statement went on to say, we regret any inconvenience caused and will keep the public updated on any further changes regarding upcoming games. So a very vague two sentence post about why the games haven't been streamed this weekend. It's not enough. It's not enough. We have had 6 weeks of action thus far, and they've been going very well streaming the games, and we really appreciated the live streams, as we won't be able to attend every single game. So, and even after attending the games in person, sometimes the stream is very helpful, that you can go back and check to see how goals were scored, the little incidents that may have taken place during games that might have been missed. So it's very disappointing to know that the games won't stream this weekend, and one could only assume, right? We have no inside information or any idea what is the reason the games aren't being streamed, but one could assume this has something to do with payment, right? If we were being honest here, because the commentators, I'm sure, are willing, and this is definitely from, I'm not sure whether it's directly VSPL or it's a football federation thing, but this screams of a payment issue. And if that is the case, that is a shame, because we have fans who aren't in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and who would have been taken in the games from the first 6 weeks of the season thus far, and looking forward to the games that just gone this weekend. And to know that the reason the games aren't being streamed is for that little 2-sentence post that the VSPL put out on social media is not enough. People need to be held accountable for these things. Statements better than this, like, need to be done. Like, I'm not saying it has to be a whole press conference or something, but someone can come out and give a little minute video and explain, what is going on, because you have concerned fans, people who are actually interested in the football and want to keep abreast of how things are unfolding during this 2026 VSPL season. And again, you just have to reiterate how disappointing it was to know that, games won't stream this weekend, and we have no way of seeing how the goals were scored on Friday. For example, in the Camdonia game, we have no way of seeing how those goals were scored. And if I didn't go to Park last night, I would not have known how Layou scored their 8 goals, and then how the defending champions, North Leeward Predators, dramatically beat the league leaders. without the live stream, it's all just a word of mouth and looking at stats. So I hope with whatever issue you guys have can be quickly resolved, because as speaking as a concerned fan, we need that live stream. We need that live stream in order to follow along and to keep abreast of what's going on in the Premier League. We stated that we wanted to venture towards a semi-professional type standard of a league, and we can't even have a live stream for the entire first round. It's 7 weeks in, and we can't have a live stream in the seventh week. Like, we need to do better. The consistency of the games playing on Friday and Sunday is to be applauded. The schedule has been, followed. No adjustments has been made thus far, aside from the one venue change they did, where games were supposed to play at Independence Park but were played at Brighton week before. But aside from that, all logistical issues have been handled very well, and we must give you credit for that. But with this is a big stain, because this is how persons who aren't able to attend the games physically would get to view them. And the excuse that was put out is simply not good enough. So we're just pleading with the Simmons and Grenades Football Federation, the Vinci Soccer Premier League, VC3, whoever is in charge. Please, please do better. If you guys need extra hands, you need help, please feel free to reach out to us. We are willing to do work. We are willing to provide coverage and assist with getting the football out there, because at the end of the day, that is the main thing here, getting the football out there. It isn't just to be gate kept within St. Vincent. It's to be shown regionally and internationally. So we need to keep up the consistency with the streaming, as that is what would continue bringing fans in. And if another week goes by and there's no stream, you could just imagine the lack of interest that will come from you guys not streaming the games. So that's just my 2 cents as a concerned fan, someone who is trying to also cover the games. So I'm speaking from a fan's perspective. However, I'm also speaking from like a punditry perspective here. I'm not able to speak about the games if I don't see them. You know what I'm saying? And while this might not be a job at the moment where I'm being paid and employed by someone, it's something that I have a lot of passion for, and I'm trying to follow. And if you guys aren't streaming the games and providing, whether it be a highlights, or you guys don't even have highlights on these kind of things so that people could go back and look. So it's very difficult for us to break down the games if we're not seeing them. So we're pleading with you guys to solve whatever minor issues that you may have which prevented you from streaming the games over the weekend. Please try to get them solved for this weekend and for the rest of the season. If you need help, feel free to reach out to us. We are willing and ready. And that brings us to the end of our episode for Game Week 7 review of the Vinci Soccer Premier League. A massive weekend of results that has tightened the race at the top and given the defending champions new momentum heading into the next round of fixtures. Join us again next week as we continue to break down all the action from the Vinci Soccer Premier League right here on Global Sports from a Caribbean perspective, where we remain committed to turning our passion into purpose through sport. The best games, best teams, which will provide the best takes, all from a Caribbean perspective. One Global Sports from